At this point, you've probably already watched those house flipping shows where someone purchases a dilapidated house, fix it up, and then sell it for a profit. But have you ever heard about lease flipping? In this video, I'm gonna show you how to make money with commercial real estate lease contracts with very little amount of money or maybe no money down. Just follow me to find out how. Okay, so now we are going to explore the commercial real estate strategy for lease flipping. Okay, I recommend this strategy to use in industrial properties for the reason we are gonna see in the next board, but you can do it on industrial, you can do it on retail, on even in office. In multifamily, it's not very easy to do it because the leases in multifamily are around 1 year, so you need more than 3 years to do this lease flipping strategy. But let me show you how you can do it on commercial real estate. So the first step, you need to find the property. To find these properties, I use software like CoStar. Maybe some of you have seen my lives where I use the CoStar. This is a software that is kind of the Zillow, but for commercial real estate. So it has a lot of information about commercial, and I can filter up for the leases on the market. Usually for this, I filter up for owner-occupied properties. Why? Because the owner is not in the rental business. He has another kind of business. For example, he may be some kind of furniture making. So they are into the furniture making, and they do the money in the furniture. So maybe they are not in the best, maybe the financials are not the best for this company. So they are trying to lease some space. They own the whole building, but they are trying to lease some space just to recoup some money. So they will probably rent under the market. So if you search for properties that are owned like for a private fund or a private owner that it's in the rental business, it will probably rent you give you market rentals. So you want to get lower here, so you can rent it for more than that amount. So I recommend the owner occupied, and you can also go find subleases. These are companies that they are not the owner of the building, but they probably, like 2 or 3 years ago, they rent more space than they need. So now they realize they need less space, and they like as in this first step, they need to recoup some money. But they only want to recoup the money they are paying for the lease. They are already paying. So for example, if they are paying $12 per square feet, they only want to recoup that money. Maybe they will accept 10 because they are not in the lease business, in the rental business. So I usually filter owner occupied or subleases. And you also, when you see the property, you want to filter for ample space. So you want a lot of space so you can subdivide and rent it out for multiple tenants. And also, when you see this space, you have to find out if it has many doors. For example, if you want to rent one big warehouse and you want to subdivide and do many leases, like 5 leases, at least you need 1 door per lease. Okay, so if you don't have those doors, you have to ask the owner or of the lessor if he can let you make or build that extra door or that extra improvements you want to make. Okay, but you have to find ample space, and you have to take this into account. Step number 2, you make the lease LOI, letter of intent, and you underwrite the property. So once you have all this information that you can get from CoStar, or maybe you can go to the site take a tour, you get some information, but you are missing more information, more about the rents, the leases, the terms. So once you have all this information with your commercial real estate agent, will write a letter of intent. Okay, so you start a letter of intent. It's not an enforceable contract. So you are just saying, I will pay this rent. I will need a right to sublease. This is very important because otherwise you cannot flip. You need to make some kind of sublease to get more money. So you need the right to sublease from the lessor. Also, you need to find out the term, the remaining term. If this is a sublease, the lessor has already a lease. So they will probably, for example, they have a 10-term lease and the remaining time it's 8 years. So they only can rent you for 8 years. So you need to find the remaining time of the lease. If this is an owner, you will not have a remaining, you only have the lessor is willing to rent you the property. So you have to find the lease term, and then you have to find the tenant improvements. As I told you, you may see you have the space to rent it out for five tenants, but you only have 2 doors. So you have to find out where will you build those 3 extra doors, and you have to negotiate with the lessor or with the owner if you can make those extra improvements and who will pay for it. If you will pay, or maybe they will give you some tenant improvements allowances, so the lessor will pay for it, or maybe take it from the rent. Okay, so you have to keep this in mind, tenant improvements, and negotiate which tenant improvements you have to make on the property. Okay, and also, as I told you, you have to negotiate the tenant improvements allowances or the concessions. For example, on those doors, who will pay for those 3 extra doors? Maybe you will pay for 1 and the owner will pay for the 2 extra doors, for the remaining doors. And you have also to negotiate concessions. For example, rent reduction. For example, you may say, let's say the rent is, you negotiate $10 per square feet for the remaining 8 years. But maybe you negotiate the first year, you get a discount for maybe 20%. So first year you will pay only $8 per square feet. Or you may negotiate that the lessor or the owner will give you, let's say, the first 3 rents. While you make the tenant improvements, he will not charge you for the rents for the first 3 months, the first 3 rents, while you are making the tenant improvements. Or maybe you negotiate, you will pay those 3 rents, but you will not pay it in the first, second, and third month. You will pay it in the 12, 13, and 14 month. So basically you will push it. So that gives you some cash flow, so you can find the tenants while not paying the rent. And you can find tenants, and then you start paying. When you find the tenants, you start paying the rent to the owner. Okay, so there are many things you can negotiate in the lease agreements, and for this you will need a very professional commercial real estate agent that knows about this. If you are doing industrial, you need someone that is specialized in this kind of assets, so he can help you to negotiate this. Okay, so the step number 3 is the sublease. So once you have the letter of intent and the owner or the lessor accepts that letter of intent, then you sign the lease agreement. Okay, then you have a lease agreement, and then you can now sublease that space. So you can get more rents. If you negotiate 10 per square feet, you may get maybe 20 per square feet. Why? Because you are renting, you are dividing the space, and you are renting to more people. So the smaller the space, at least in industrial is how it works, but in most commercial it happens the same way. The smaller the space, the higher the rent per square feet. So that's how you can make this flipping, lease flipping. In the sublease, once you have the contract, you start making the tenant improvements. If you have to build those extra doors, you may take maybe 1 to 3 months, maybe more if it's a lot of improvements, but usually it's 1 to 3 months. In that time, you will not have any cash flow because you don't have tenants. And you can also find tenants at the same time you are making the improvements. Okay, that's called pre-leasing. Because, for example, in industrial, when one company have already a lease and that lease will expire and they want to move, they start looking for a space 6 months before the lease expires because they don't want to expire the lease and then look for space. So that's why you can sign a lease agreement before they move out, and then you can start looking for tenants here while you are making improvements. So you are also in this, or before making the tenant improvements, you have to find the space you want to rent for each tenant. For example, if you have, let's say, 100,000 square feet, you decide you are going to lease it out for 5 tenants, 10,000 square feet each one. So you set 10,000 per tenant, you set the rent. If the market rent and your improvements you are making allows you to raise the rent to 20, from 10 to 20, then you set the rent and 20 per square feet. You set the term. For this, you have to agree with the lessor or with the owner the term of the lease. So if he leases for 8 years, you can lease at most for 8 years, but you can decide maybe I will rent only for 4 years and then renew the contract or find a new tenant. So you have to decide this and the other conditions you are willing to offer in that lease agreement. Okay, and at the same time, as I already mentioned, you are looking for tenants. Once you have the tenant, usually you have to get the lessor approval, because if he gave you the right to sublease, usually he conditioned it to lessor approval. Okay, so you have to get the lessor approval once you found the tenant. Okay, the last step is assign the lease contract. This is where you make the money. Okay, so because you have the already new tenants in the space and you are paying 10 and you are receiving 20, you have a profit. And if your term of the contract is remaining 8 years or the time it's writing on the lease agreement, you have money, you have something that has value. So if you decide to sell that contract, it has some value. So in this step, you can assign that contract for money. Usually when you assign that contract, or again, you need the lessor approval, because the lessor will rent to a new tenant. Okay, so you get the lessor approval. And last step, and this is a bonus, because as in the house flipping, in house flipping you can make the fixing up and then sell the property and make money. But there's another strategy that it's called BRRR, B and 4 R's, that you keep the property and you refinance and you keep doing. Okay, so this is the same thing. If you don't want to sell or assign the contract, you just keep the property and you get that extra cash flow, that 10 per square feet, or your profit that you are getting after expenses. Okay, so because you are having a profit here, the banks will lend you money. Okay, but this is not like a mortgage, like a traditional mortgage that go like a home equity line of credit or that kind of thing, that you go and then put your house and they give you a loan. No, this is kind of different. This is a pledge loan, because you are pledging the lease agreement, the lease contract. Remember, it has value. The bank wants some kind of guarantee. Okay, so you go and place a lease agreement, and they give you money because you have cash flow. Okay, and with that money, you can keep investing. Maybe you purchase other properties, or maybe you pay some rent, making the same kind of strategy, or maybe you do whatever you want with that money. Okay, or maybe you just keep the property and you don't refinance, and that way you have the cash flow. In the next board, we are doing some math, some example of this strategy, so you can understand how a business like this works. Okay, so let's do the math for this. For this example, I have an industrial property. As I mentioned before, I like for this strategy industrial properties. Why? Because of the triple net. You have always all industrial properties, or many of the industrial properties have triple net leases. That means all the rents you get in your pocket are profit, or most of it are profit, because the tenant will pay for maintenance, for insurance, and for property taxes. So you keep all the money with triple net leases. The other thing I like about industrial properties is the term of the leases. In industrial properties, you can easily have 8 years or 10 years, or maybe up to 15 years in some cases. That's actually something hard to do in other kind of commercial properties, like retail. You mostly have 3 to 5 years maybe, and in office you also have 3 to 5 years. So the longer the term of your lease, the higher the value of the assignment, of assigning the contract, so you have more money in. So that's why I like industrial properties. So for this example, we have a warehouse. This warehouse is about 100,000 square feet. So they are leasing up for 10 per square feet. Okay, they are leasing all the space, so we have to subdivide and lease it up to multiple tenants. Okay, so we have a term of 8 years. The owner is a company and they are leasing for 8 years. So we can, for that term. So for the tenant, we decided we are gonna lease it up to 5 tenants, because each tenant will use 20,000 square feet. Okay, so that's easier to rent it out than 100,000 square feet. Okay, so we will probably easily find one tenant that wants to lease that amount of space. The type of lease, we are also leasing for a triple net, because we already have a triple net, so we can just pass that responsibility to the new tenants. Okay, but here's the magic. We will increase the rent to 18 per square feet. Why? You will say, first we find, as in the last board I told you, you should find owner-occupied tenants. So since this is owner-occupied landlords, so since this is a company that, let's say, they make furniture or they make tires, let's say, they don't want to make money on the rents. They just want to lease the extra space. So that's why they are renting for under the market. So we are renting, we are subdividing, and we are raising the rents, but we also have a lease that is lower than the market. Okay, so that's why we can raise the rent to 18. So we have tenant expenses, because we found that this space only has 3 doors, so we have to build 2 extra doors. So we wrote the letter of intent to the owner, and they didn't want to pay for the tenant improvements, because we may negotiate tenant improvement allowance, but we have to pay for all that improvements. But they accept to give us the first 3 months rent free. So we got this concession from the tenant, from the landlord, and we have the same term, 8 years. The vacancy we are gonna take 3 months to get all the 5 tenants, okay? Because we already analyzed the market and there's high demand for this size of space, and there's high demand for this area. So in the first 3 months, we signed the lease with all the 5 tenants while we were making the tenant improvements. So now we have 5 lease contracts with an agreed rent for 18 per square feet, and we have the lease agreement with the landlord and we are paying 10 per square feet. Since we have a triple net lease and the tenant is paying for everything, so then most of this is profit. So we have 8 per square feet profit or operational profit, okay? So that means in 8 years we will receive from rents from those 5 tenants, we will receive more than 6.2 million because I extract the vacancy period. So we are receiving all that 8 years of rent less the vacancy period. Okay, so we are receiving $6.2 million on all the 8 years. But let's say we don't want to keep the lease agreement, we don't want to wait all the 8 years to receive $6.2 million. So we want to assign the contract now and we want to get some money. Okay, if that's the case, we need to calculate the present value of these properties. So that means bringing all those cash flows we receive from rents all to the present value. So we need to set a rate for this calculation, and I set it for around 6%. So this is the cost of opportunity of that money bringing into our pockets. Okay, so in that case, with a 6% rate, we are rolling a value lease contract on 5 million. So if we want to assign the contract, we can ask 5 million right now to a new investor. So for this, as I told you before, you have to already have a list of investors. So once you have listed up, you send all the information to the new investors, the proposal sale price, and you assign the contract and you get the signature from the original owner because he needs to agree to this operation. Okay, so in this video I show you an easy way to start investing in real estate with low or maybe no money. So I hope you like this video. Really, if you like it, give me a thumbs up, it helps me a lot. And don't forget, if you like this channel, subscribe. That way I can teach you more with more videos and you will get notified once I upload a new video. And if you have any question, you can write it on the comments. I would love to answer your questions. If you want to invest in real estate but you don't have the time, or maybe you don't have the money to start investing, you can join my exclusive investor club just by clicking below on the link, and you will be notified once I get an opportunity for you. So you can start investing from only $25,000. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and see you on the next one.